and welcome to FTB Fridays. It is Friday, the 18th of December. We're recording this at 4:15 p.m. I'm Jason C. McLean with Forget the Box. Now, we're almost at the end of the year. It's been a hectic year for a lot of people, a lot of artists in particular. We just last week got news that Osheaga is returning at the end of next year. But one thing we might forget is all the independent venues that have not been able to produce basically not been able to finding it very difficult to survive during the year because they can't have audiences. So I'm joined by Jon Weisz, who's the founder of Indie Montreal, the co-founder and executive director of Le SMAC, and a member of the steering committee of Support Canadian Venues. Welcome, Jon.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Very well. Now, tell me about Support Canadian Venues. What exactly is this initiative?
So I'm part of a coalition called the Canadian Independent Venue Coalition, which came together shortly after the start of the pandemic, and basically is run by a bunch of different venues and people who are involved in the independent music scene in Canada, and pretty quickly realized that unless we got together and mobilized music fans across Canada, we were not going to have a live music industry to come back to, or at least an independent live music industry to come back to when the pandemic is over. And so Support Canadian Venues is an initiative that this coalition put in place to try to get people talking about what live venues mean for them. And so when I say people, I'm talking about musicians and people who are involved in music in some way, creators, but also music fans and people who would have trouble seeing Canada without an independent live music sector. And so we have a website called our website is supportcanadianvenues.ca. And so people who are interested in having more info can go there. I'm not going to sort of repeat everything that's on the site, but basically it gives you as a citizen resources about how you can support venues and help us save the touring ecology that it's taken us so many decades to build up.
Is part of that support putting maybe polite pressure on governments?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So are we talking federal, provincial, local, or the whole kit and caboodle?
Well, so Support Canadian Venues is obviously a federal initiative, and so our focus is mostly on the federal government, on the Department of Canadian Heritage, and on your local representatives. But I mean, the reason that we're focusing on federal is because we're a coalition of industry professionals from across the country, but obviously we're all focusing, individually, sort of siloed. We're all focusing on the provincial and the municipal level of advocacy as well. I mean, as the executive director of Le SMAC, I mean, I speak to people in the provincial government all the time. The reason why I was late for this interview is because I had a call with someone from the funding bodies. But so, the resources that we're sort of putting at people's disposition are general, and people can sort of, if they want to activate, they can activate with respect to any and all levels of government.
And what have you achieved so far? This has been going on for a few months now, right? Since the beginning of the pandemic, basically.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you exactly when it formed. The whole notion of time is so,
yeah,
so kind of like porous. But
which year of this decade did it form in?
Yeah. But so basically, I'm actually now on the board of the Canadian Live Music Association, which is the association that represents. So Le SMAC represents independent venues specifically in Quebec, and the Canadian Live Music Association represents all types of live music stakeholders across all of Canada. And so they have been involved since the industry's since the association's inception in advocacy at multiple levels, but including the federal level. And so we decided to form this coalition and this initiative as a more public-facing campaign to get regular citizens involved in the conversation. And so that, I mean, that must have been around May, late April or May. But the Canadian Live Music Association and also the provincial music industry associations and a number of other important organizations have been involved in this discussion since the very start of the pandemic. But we came around. This coalition was birthed out of a feeling that we needed to sort of involve regular citizens as opposed to just kind of talking with, going through the regular political channels.
And are regular citizens, are they getting involved? Are they what kind of response are you getting from regular citizens?
Well, we launched the campaign. We launched the campaign a few months ago, and the response was actually pretty good. Albeit, I think it was better in English Canada than French Canada for reasons that we can get into or not. And we pretty quickly saw a lot of support from musicians themselves. Like I think the Tragically Hip made a video for us. I think Max, the singer of the Arkells.
Does it really get more Canadian than the Tragically Hip, does it?
No. Yeah, and them, members of Broken Social Scene. I don't remember all of the. I'm not the one who coordinated that part of the campaign, but there was a lot of really, really well-known artists who went to bat for the cause. In addition to regular citizens who were using our hashtag and were posting and were writing letters to their elected officials. So, I mean, I think it went reasonably well. There's always room, for the movement to grow.
Yeah.
One of the issues that we've been bumping up against, even though I should sort of preface this by saying that the federal government did offer some help to independent venues.
Okay.
It's not enough, for everyone to be able to get through the entire pandemic. It's a start, but it should be, take time to kind of to recognize that they did offer about 20, I think it was $23 million for the independent live music sector in emergency funding. But that was done despite. I mean, look, it's all relative. The Montreal Jazz Fest got, I think it was $2.1 million just to do with a digital edition this year. So it's like you can kind of you can compare numbers all day long, but the point is, I think it's important to recognize that what the government has already put in place. I'm losing my train of thought. It's Friday at the end of the day.
It's FTB Fridays. Well, actually, in Montreal specifically, I'm sure you know this scene very well with Indie Montreal. What if we still have music venues? There are still venues that have not gone under yet, but some have. What's the lay of the land in Montreal? What do you think it's good? What does it look like now? And what do you think it'll look like when the pandemic's over?
We've lost at least 4 venues that I know about. And we're actually faring. So what I would say is there have been a lot more venue closures in Ontario, for example, than in Quebec, because Ontario, to my knowledge, has not sort of offered the same kind of emergency help to venues that the province has in Quebec.
Okay.
Again, we're very lucky. We're not all the way there yet. There's still ways to go, but
there's some famous names in Ontario that we lost. Some venues that I've never been to, but I've heard of living because they're nationally known.
And I mean, so I think that what I would say is that venues in Montreal specifically are still facing a tremendous uphill battle. There has to be more help rolled out, or else we're going to see a lot of those venues close. But it's also important to, I've been trying throughout the pandemic to kind of, to look at the bright side. And, it's important to recognize that we have a provincial government who I don't always necessarily agree with every single decision that they make, but they're at the table when it comes to this issue more than a lot of other provincial governments are.
Okay, well, that's a step forward, and I guess that's all we can do now is try and take get as many step forwards as possible. So if people want to get involved, they want to know more. How do they find you?
So supportcanadianvenues.ca is our English website, and souteneznoscènes.ca in French. And then we launched the hashtag support Canadian venues and hashtag soutenez nos scènes in French. And so the first thing that I would recommend is just going to the website and checking out the info. My colleagues in the coalition have put a lot of really interesting stuff on the site, and there's a section called Take Action on the website, where it gives you a list of things that you can do if you want to support venues. I think that the general message is that it's important to, if you want to voice your support, if you want to support venues, it's important to say it out loud, and it's important to say it on social media, but not only on social media.
Yeah.
It's important to write the people in positions of power, because they do listen. I've really been pleasantly surprised at the extent to which elected officials really are listening to people, or doing their best to listen to people in the current context. And so, a letter or an email is not going to fall on deaf ears.
Yeah. Okay. Well, people also can find you at indiemontreal.ca, right? Personally, like that's you're the company you started here.
Yeah. So indiemontreal.ca is our website.
Is it Montreal or MTL?
Montreal spelled out.
Yeah.
Montreal.ca, and you can get more info about who we are and about the artists that we work with. We do artist management, booking, press relations, consulting.
Yeah. Even during the pandemic.
I
still get emails from you.
Good to know. Our marketing apparatus is still.
Yeah, it's still working, still functional. We covered one of your artists that releasing an album the other day. I want to thank you very much, Jon, for being with us. And if you want to follow Forget the Box, you can at Forget the Box on Twitter and Facebook. Also share, like, and comment on YouTube. And you could always find us at forgetthebox.net.